Hey everyone. Back in 2003, Kristin and I were on the cross-country team at UT Austin, and this was our special high five. Definitely not as genius as the one we've been taught today, but it was special for us. And what was even more special for us is that even though we came from different backgrounds, I grew up in Mexico, and Kristin grew up in the East Coast, we realized really fast that we had one dream in common, which is to see the end of global hunger and poverty in our lifetime. So in all of those long runs, we had lots of time to think about this dream and to make plans for how we would make it real, how we would turn it into reality. And after graduation, these plans came alive when we turned a student organization into a nonprofit social enterprise called FeelGood, a student-led movement inspired by the following words. There are nearly 1 billion people on this planet who, because they lack a voice, cannot get enough food to remain alive. There is just no way to feel good about these facts unless you get busy to change them, and so we are. So we've been at this now for 7 years, and FeelGood is now a national movement, and we are here today to share with you what we've learned, all boiled down into 3 simple and essential steps for how to take any huge and overwhelming problem like global hunger and create a movement with the power to really make a difference. So the first step is to wake up that the problems that we're trying to solve, to acknowledge them and to see them not only with our eyes but also with our hearts. The good thing is that we live in an era of information. We have an unprecedented amount of data about the state of the world, about the impact that our actions have on the planet, and about the existence of even the tiniest roads in the smallest villages around the world. So that's awesome. The problem, though, is that we can get overflown by so much data, overwhelmed. And there are very painful statistics that sometimes just don't get the appropriate response from us. So who here has heard before that there are 1 million people who die every year to chronic persistent hunger? That is 25,000 people every day who die from hunger-related causes. And every 5 seconds, one of them is a child. So how do we connect with these numbers? How do we make them real? How do we wake up to what it really means to lose so many members of our human family to something as unnecessary as chronic hunger? Here's one way. So you all have your little packages. Go ahead and grab them, and carefully you will find a metal bead in there. So put that metal bead in your hand. It looks just like this. Okay. When you have your bead in your hand, raise it like this. Okay. All right. So let's look at our bead for a second. And as an exercise of our imagination, don't think of it as a bead, but as one human life. And not just any human life, but the life of someone who you really love. Someone who has impacted you, who has brought you life and meaning and has helped you become who you are, who you want to be. It can be a parent or a friend, a teacher, anyone who's impacted you. So let this bead, represent that person. And think about how they've influenced you. And think about how that influence has rippled out. Are there 5, 10, 50, 100 people who have also been influenced by this person? And then each one of them in turn have gone out and influenced others? So as we do this, we can really begin to feel the impact that a life can have in our relationships. And how it is that in relationships and in community, we can truly thrive. We can fulfill who we are. And there is even another dimension to the importance of a human life. You know that it took about 14 billion years for the universe to put each and every one of us here on this planet. Think about it. 14 billion years of energy and creativity and learning packed into each and every one of us. And each one of us walking miracles, literally, with capacities that we are just beginning to understand. So when a life is lost to hunger, or thrown away really, can we really grasp that loss? Can we really connect with what is being thrown away? Do we really have throwaway people? We do. Our actions say that we do. We throw away people at an unimaginable rate and at an unimaginable cost. 1 million people every year unnecessarily thrown away. 25,000 precious lives every day thrown away. And someone's child every 5 seconds thrown away. In this jar, we have 25,000 BBs representing the 25,000 lives lost every day to global hunger. And here is what that loss sounds like. I invite you all to close your eyes.
Raise your hand if you were surprised by just how long that sound went on. Raise your hand if you desperately wanted it to stop. 25,000 lives. A single day. Sometimes it hurts to wake up. You know, the reason it hurts is because deep down we care. We have compassion for our fellow humans. In other words, we love. And isn't that just a beautiful discovery? So from this deep place of love emerges the second step, the desire to respond, to do something, right? Do something, stop it. but not just anything, something that works. So initially, we found that starting simple works. With an issue as overwhelming and hard to grasp as hunger, it's just so easy to not engage because we make these assumptions that our actions just don't matter. So simplicity provides a pathway through that obstacle. It can have people making a difference before they even know what they're doing. And it can quickly become self-reinforcing and even addicting because our most innate desire is to make a difference. We are designed to make a difference. So at FeelGood, the simplicity begins with a grilled cheese. College students run and manage FeelGood Delis, where they offer delicious gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches in exchange for a donation of whatever feels good. And 100% of that is invested in organizations ending hunger. So not only is this a simple way for students to make a difference, it's a simple way for customers to engage as well, right? So as they're waiting for their sandwich, they're learning about the root causes to hunger. Through conversations and educational materials, they explore this idea that, oh, hunger is not an issue of food? What do you mean by that? As they walk away, they have this feeling that just by buying lunch, I had impact on a major global crisis, right? And that feeling not only has them coming back again and again, it turns many of them into volunteers, or what we call changemakers. They end up working at the deli, putting on educational events, and many even change their careers and majors. So it turns out to be a pretty effective model. Since we started ending world hunger, one grilled cheese at a time, we have raised over $1.4 million. And we've had over 130 conversations because we've made 130 sandwiches. And what's more important and so exciting, we have empowered 13,000 lives out of chronic persistent hunger and into lives of self-reliance. So simple action, powerful outcome. But there's a caveat. Because while it is important to start simple, you can't stay there. In order to have lasting impact, your response needs to be systemic. It needs to get to the root of the problem. So here's what we mean by that. Chronic hunger and the range of pressing issues we are faced with today are really just the tip of the iceberg, or outcomes of an operating system that's no longer working. So in order to address these issues, we have to rigorously examine what is below the surface. When we're willing to examine chronic hunger, we find that it's really a consequence of our culture, or the attitudes and beliefs we hold about ourselves and our world. So to change the outcome of chronic hunger, we first have to change our culture. But to do that, we need to go another level down, because our culture also arises out of something deeper. Our culture springs from what you might think of as our purpose and mission in life, our vision of what's possible. And for most of the world today, our vision of what's possible is limited by this restricted sense of connection to and compassion for our fellow humans and all life. So to change our culture, we need a new purpose and mission, one that's inclusive, compassionate, long-term, which means we need to go just one more level down to what we call our worldview, or our fundamental understanding of the way the world works. In order to have big impact, we have to operate from this understanding that Tom talked about earlier. Right? We have to operate and create from this understanding that we live in an interdependent, interconnected world. So that what we do matters because it affects the whole. And what we don't do matters too. And this is the worldview that our grilled cheese represents. And an interdependent world is a world where hunger is not an option. So through our conversations, we start to unpack what does it mean to operate from a world that's interconnected. So we have to wake up, we have to do something that works, something that's simple and systemic. But that's not all, because if we're going to end hunger in our lifetime, we've got to accelerate this impact, which requires working together. So step 3, don't do it alone. Do it with someone else. Prior to the 70s, global hunger and poverty were seen as necessary evils. It wasn't until the start of the 21st century that we came together as a global community and started addressing hunger in its many dimensions and set clear goals around eradicating it. Surely you have heard of the Millennium Development Goals. So we've made huge strides. More people have escaped poverty in the 2000s than any decade in history. And we have identified what the mandatory ingredients are that have become the industry standard for ending hunger. And this is new knowledge. It's really exciting, and it's only been discovered because we have been working together, which is a messy process. We know ending hunger is about empowering women, addressing the deeply entrenched social condition of gender discrimination with men and women all around the world. We know it requires local solutions, mobilizing grassroots leadership. We know charity and handouts don't work. What's required is sustained partnership. We know that all levels of society must be engaged from local to national level. We know it's not about food, it's about giving voice to the voiceless and access to resources, technology, and decision-making. We know people born into chronic hunger are the most vulnerable to climate change, and therefore we must take an integrated approach. We know that all inequalities, from race to region to disability, must be erased, must be overcome. And finally, we know that we are one human family and that we will only survive and thrive together. We live in the most exciting time. Over 14 billion years of learning, creativity, energy have been invested in this moment, and we sit on the brink of the end of hunger. So wake up, and from that loving place of hurt, respond by doing something that works, something that is simple and systemic. And do that thing with others. Not only is it more fun, our survival depends on us working together to accelerate us into the end of hunger, into a world where all life can thrive.